It is the Trading Triangle. Good to be back. Hey, Sean, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, very excited for the new year, the new trading possibilities that can come our way. Yeah, buzzing.
Absolutely. How about you, Kay? Feeling well?
Feeling great. Happy New Year to everybody, you guys, and the audience. It's great to be back.
I feel the same way. It's great to be back. I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it with you guys, checking out some new charts, trade ideas, live streaming on X on both my channel and on Wolf's, and then you can catch us on YouTube on Wolf's channel as well at Wolf Financial, and then also on the Trading Triangle. So exciting stuff for the year. Disclaimer up front: remember, this is not financial advice, or nor should be taken that way. We are not financial advisors. Just here for entertainment, educational value. So hopefully you're getting a lot of that. And do subscribe and smash the like button if you are on YouTube. It does help us out, get the word out. All of that aside, I think it's time to start getting into it. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. I'm excited to get in these charts. It's been a minute. It's my favorite thing to do. And we got some interesting stuff. We got earnings coming up, right? So before we get to that, though, I see a lot of green in some of the names. We had a rebound last week. So if you missed out on the first couple of weeks of the year, Sean and I were talking about that earlier on, actually. You might not have noticed anything. You just show up and you're like, oh, everything's flat to start the year. But in fact, there's this big V formation, right? Like we had all the selling and then bought right back and saw some nice moves and some big names last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, semiconductors, you guys. NVIDIA. I'm happy about that.
Love it.
Yeah. How about you, Sean? Did you have a good week last week as far as some of the names you were watching, or were you kind of not really full engaged last week yet?
I wasn't fully engaged. No, I was still recovering from a little bit of illness, but I was obviously on Yahoo Finance looking at my stocks, thinking, okay, yeah, this is not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Right.
But as you mentioned, yeah, the V-shaped recovery, I kind of switched off for a couple of weeks, came back, and nothing had changed. So it's quite nice, really. So it's a bit like a beginning of the year, a reset almost this week.
Yeah. No, I'm super positive about how semiconductors have acted, and we've got a couple of names we'll look at. And I'm glad you're feeling better, Sean. Glad to have you guys both feeling better. I know you're getting over a bout. So let's look at the Fear and Greed Index and all of the indices and how the performance was last week, because it was impressive to see the comeback. VIX with the 12 handle. So interesting fact here, you guys. We've been talking about the VIX being low and feeling like it's low, and having the 12 handle feels really low. But in fact, historically, apparently, this is where it spends most of its time. So the VIX has a 12 handle more than any other handle, 13, 14, 11, whatever you name it. So I thought that was interesting to note, because doesn't it feel like it's low here? It feels low.
It is definitely low. And I don't know if you saw the latest new, was it on Unusual Whales? I think I saw a post that there was a major activity on the call options for VIX, like about 17 or so. So there's a lot more call options open on VIX. That was reported by Unusual Whales.
Yeah, interesting. Taking advantage of possibly hedging, or at these low levels, getting a nice spike could pay off. Sean, do you ever trade VIX?
No, not at all. Actually, I obviously have it on my kind of watch list and see where it kind of is, but I don't really pay attention to it or trade off of it or use it to obviously influence my trades. But yeah, I mean, I've been trading for a few years, and having the VIX down at 12, it seems new to me. But having you say that, it's quite interesting. Thinking actually, does it really matter too much? But I'm not too sure.
It kind of calibrated me a little bit, because I'm just used to 18 seems low, right? So, but in fact, it's not been the case. But yeah,
we got a couple questions on the channel. If you want to take
excellent. Let's make sure we get to our questions. So Jackie asked, what do we think about the market next week? And Darren's asking about crude oil. So great questions. We will be getting into the market as soon as we get into those charts here in a couple seconds. So let's definitely, and we'll be talking about here with the performance last week. So let's definitely get into that. Real quick comments on crude. Actually, I'm going to save it till after the Fear and Greed, but let's get to both of those, guys. Don't let me forget. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep you honest.
Yeah, keep me honest here for sure. So a couple interesting notes on this chart. The Fear and Greed Index, we're squarely in the greed side of things now. And you kind of like to see it because it's showing the buyers are in and pushing markets higher, which you can see on the left-hand side here. Q's up over 2.5%, which after last year's run, I mean, that's a nice week right there. They're not quite. You'll see the chart in here in a minute, and as well as with SPY, not quite like powering to new highs, but definitely some interesting stuff going on. Diamonds DIA up 0.73, and small caps very interesting. I think a lot of people are talking about small caps this year. I don't know if you guys have much interest in that space, but I'm looking at small cap tech for sure. And then Bitcoin, definitely interesting to see Bitcoin down there at 42.9. It might be around 43 now. Pushed all the way up 46, 47. And we saw, my favorite ticker in the space, Marathon Digital, really get up there and then pull back. So I'll be posting a trade actually for my Substack subscribers about Marathon here on this long weekend. But enough about that. Let's keep it rolling.
So before you jump on, Nate, quick one. On the Bitcoin side, we saw a lot of ETFs getting approved officially for Bitcoin.
It's a huge news. That was huge news, right?
So, what are your thoughts on? Are you guys like going to still invest individually in Bitcoin, or would you hedge it based on the ETF, or actually go the ETF route?
What do you think, Sean?
I'd probably go the ETF route, just because broker-wise over here it's not so easy to invest in crypto, apart from obviously Coinbase, etc. But definitely the ETF seems a bit more appealing. But I think the whole kind of thing was sell the news event, wasn't it? Really, judging by the price action within Bitcoin, etc. But yeah, I mean that's my kind of preference.
We had the fake news event and then the real news event, and then things sold. I think
very much so.
I think it's going to be bad news for Coinbase long term. That's my one comment there. Right?
And I think my comment to that one is, I have more faith in Bitcoin itself, but I don't have faith in the exchanges, as we saw with all the controversy with all the platforms and exchanges like the Binance. Coinbase is still pretty much the most decent one, I would say, among all of them. But Celsius, all those bankruptcies that happened last year and the year before, it doesn't instill confidence in investors. But each to his own.
True statement. Well, let's see where it goes. I mean, those ETFs definitely came out. It was interesting too, if you notice, like the fund flows into them didn't quite hit the massive levels that you got at MicroStrategy, right? So anyways, definitely interesting stuff.
Do you want to hit on ExxonMobil crude oil before you jump on? I know you
well, let's see. I was gonna say, do we have any we don't really have any in the earnings spot here, so let's talk about it while people are taking a look at these names that we got for earnings coming up this week. I'll keep this up here. And we've had banks rolling through, right? But when it comes to crude, so I do have some thoughts there. I've been short on XLE. I've been trading this through the energy ETF XLE. And really the level I've had is 86. I've been trading this for a while. I have to pull up charts for this one. 86 is the key resistance point. Had 82.50 as key support and 81 below that. And we have dropped below 82.50 for XLE. And I don't know where we're at exactly, but it feels like there's some, still pressure. And oil was right around 72.73, I think it was. And
it's 82.68 right now.
Is it? Where's it at now? I'm sorry.
82.68.
Ooh, pushing higher. So that'll be interesting to see how things open up. Definitely with what's going on overseas and the different attacks, and then the response to all of that is making it quite an interesting space for sure. And then as far as midstream companies, great question, Eddie. I like AMLP for an ETF for a long-term investment. So check that out if you're curious. Do your own due diligence, of course, but it's performing really well with a really nice yield. So that's my thoughts on energy space. Kay, what would you add? You got thoughts on ExxonMobil?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I'm in ExxonMobil and SLB, if you want to consider that as midstream, right? ExxonMobil, as we talked about a lot last year, and we had this trend line, which was going up at the bottom of the trend line when it actually broke through that. And then 99, 95, around that was our real support level for ExxonMobil. And right now the stock is trending around there. So it's a critical support level because there's not much buying pressure below that. So you could see a further dip. However, with the latest geopolitical events that are happening, that could artificially push up the crude oil prices. If it's going to remain volatile, we probably will see some push. But it's if you're trading it, then I generally tend to hedge it via the option side.
Yeah, I like it. Sean, you have anything to add here in the energy space?
I just look at the charts. I looked at XOM and XLL. It's look a bit range bound, especially in the last kind of few weeks. So,
which I think
it
is
might be a bit.
interesting.
It is, yeah, because you're basically waiting for a move, waiting for something to happen almost, and it's not no shortage of no news, is there at the moment? So
Exactly, yeah.
it's strange to see this kind of price action related to everything that's going on, but it's one to keep an eye on, that's for sure. But I'm not actively trading it, no.
Yeah, right on. No, definitely an interesting sector, and for a long term, for yield, I like it. As far as the near term trade, I'm still short, but it's made its move. It's near the bottom of the range here. So once you hit 81, if it drops below 80, if XLE drops below 81, that means I think there's some bigger concerns there in the space. Otherwise, that might hold up, and then we could get a bounce around these levels. So yeah, energy is definitely interesting here. I'm glad that someone brought that up. Maybe we'll have to add a name for next week to make sure we're keeping up on the space. So let's get back to earnings, because we have kicked off earnings with the financials leading the way, banks leading the way. Last week got some names starting off with, I think it was Citi, and we had JP Morgan, Wells. And then we've got Morgan Stanley, Goldman starting off this coming week in a short week on Tuesday. Charles Schwab on Wednesday, a few other names throughout the week. You do get to some of the regionals, which I am interested in, because I think that'll speak to some of the strength of the economy potentially. So Truist and M&T, a couple of names there. What did I miss, you guys? I've been talking a lot. What are you looking at, Kay?
Mostly TSMC, especially with the elections happening, actually election completing, and we'll see how the market perceives that with TSMC.
Very good point.
That always gives you a good barometer for the semiconductors area. And then honestly, this is not very exciting time. I mean, I generally tend to enjoy when the tech starts earning, because I'm mostly a tech investor. But yeah, I mean, it'll be good to see the regionals, report how they, how they're going to manage the funds they got last year.
Yeah, and I think
expired this year.
I think it could speak to the strength of the economies in those regions. So that'll be interesting there. Are you watching any earnings particularly this week, Sean?
Not this week, no. And the week after, you've got kind of, like as Kay said, Microsoft, Netflix, Tesla, and all that. So that'd be a big week. But you did mention energy. You've got SLB on Friday. Is that the same SLB? Is that right?
I hope so.
So that's
sometimes
one for you to look at.
Sometimes there are multiple tickers. I think that's the same SLB.
No, that's it. That's it. SLB is good. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's one for you to look at.
Definitely. That's a good call, actually. It's before the open Friday. So yeah, we've got plenty of names to watch as we head into those obviously much bigger names. Do you guys trade like this week, those names that are going to be reporting next week? Because I do actually start to look at that, right? And I don't know if you guys take that kind of stance, but I'd rather trade heading into earnings and then take positions off typically.
Yeah, I tend to do trading, especially during the earnings. But I only tend to trade tickers that I have experience with and I have done it before. So I wouldn't let's say start with M&T Bank, which I haven't done it before. SLB I can, because I've been trading SLB for a while now. But I tend to stick with the tickers I know.
Nice.
I tend to, with earnings, I tend to trade afterwards, really. I do pay attention to it on the way up to it, but obviously because there's so many companies reporting, it's hard to keep on top of each and every stock leading up to their earnings report. But after it, depending on the results, if you want to go short, long, etc., that's when you start really diving down into the short-term trades anyway.
Yeah, you got to keep your watch list, manageable, right? Somewhat concise there. One last name I'll mention here, Kinder Morgan on Wednesday. That is a nice energy name that always has a nice yield, and something I like to watch for the long-term portfolio. All right, let's get into the markets. We got the S&P 500 SPY ETF here up first. Sean, why don't you lead us off? What are you seeing with SPY?
So I see a little bit of positive momentum, a continuation of trend, and that's kind of be like a pattern with this, and obviously QQQ as well. But you can see this last week, of course, it's been very green. Despite the 2 red days we've just had, the Thursday may as well have been a green day because of that candle formation that we've had. So we've got a small little red bit at the top there with all the buyers that have come up down below, and that's called a bottoming tail. Is how I call it. There's lots of different names, but But yeah, so that for me is positive price action, and I think obviously, around this level of 480 is kind of all-time highs as well for SPY. So we're kind of there, and I do think we're going to make probably a slow push, a grind through 480, and what happens after that, I'm not too sure. Probably be data dependent, of course, and obviously recession talk and all that. But generally, the trend is your friend. We've spoken about it many times before, of course, throughout this channel. And for me personally, that's where we are. We've bounced off of the 20 moving average / the 469 level. So the support was there, it reacted, it's bounced, and I expect it to continue. Simple as that, really.
What do you think, Kay? What are you looking at with SPY? You seeing anything in particular, or you have any particular thoughts this week?
Well, the options data, we have a lot more hedging going on the 19th, which is the because most of the options, if you were doing leap options, they have a lot of activity on the 19th, the third week of the month. And so we have about you're looking at almost 1.72 in the put to call ratio, whereas throughout the week you're between 1.35 and 1.6. So that's a lot of activity, but the volatility is not that high. Volatility is still pretty low,
Yep.
it's like 8-9%. But
Yeah,
I think those are mostly hedging from the last year's options.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that stood out for me this week, you guys, is just look at the higher closes from basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? We had pullbacks on both Thursday and Friday, but not before we made a higher, higher intraday from the prior day. So it's like eking higher, eking higher. That's the biggest thing for me. I think that's positive above the 20-day. So yeah, I really like the actual setup here, and as far as what I'd be looking for is continue to break above those intraday highs. So Friday's high, I would want to see Monday or Tuesday us push above that for continued, kind of bullish sentiment here. And if we can maintain above that, the previous high from that spike just a few weeks earlier, I think that's hugely positive and continue the rally. I'll be watching semiconductors for continued strength, though. I think they're really leading us here across the board. So yeah, overall though, nice bounce right after kind of like the negative sentiment kind of set in there. So good to see it. See what else we got here. We got the Qs up next, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a bit more of kind of what I was talking about with the SPY. This is a bit more kind of visually actionable, if that makes sense. So obviously you've got the box there, which is obviously the recovery we've had in the last couple of weeks. That's literally, that box is this year's trading so far. So you can see how it hasn't really changed at all, really, in terms of actual stock price or price of the asset. But really, I want to see that kind of move above that kind of previous high of 412.80 on the Qs, to be specific, and then move up, kind of come down, retest it, and continue on that kind of momentum and that trend. Again, the trend being your friend. One thing I didn't mention on the SPY, but we're on the QQQ, is the RSI kind of came down to 50, which is quite aggressive, I thought, for such a high asset to come down that quickly to the 50 RSI. Obviously, it's moved up again now. But yeah, having that kind of RSI come back down, kind of recover a little bit and just kind of have a bit of a breather, essentially, is good, I think. But yeah, I just see more upside. I don't see. I mean, I do like to obviously play the other side and be slightly contrary and see what happens going downwards. But if we break 400, 404, that kind of level, then obviously that's a different story. But I just see it continuing moving higher.
Yeah, I actually think that we're gonna push towards that 412.80 this week for the Qs. So yeah, we're talking about market sentiment this week, and by the way, love to see all the requests and comments down here. We are now able to see this, coming in directly from our live stream on X. It used to be just on YouTube, so really appreciate it. Keep dropping the comments, guys, and any other tickers you want to see. I see the comments out there about Hood. Definitely a huge fan of Hood. And we were talking about Bitcoin, and just in general, I like what Hood's doing. We were talking about Taiwan Semiconductor, earlier, and we got comments around that. I agree that it'll be interesting to watch China stocks this week, and I think that the Qs and SPY are going to respond by continuing to push higher. That's my personal sentiment this week. And I think that the Qs give us a nice clean target here. So 412.80 It seems like a really nice place to get above and retest, just like you drawn out, Sean. I actually would have drawn the exact same annotation, I think. Is there anything else you'd add here, Kay? Good news on the options front?
Yeah, it's the exact same pattern like SPY. The volatility is slightly higher in the 13 range as opposed to 9-10 range for SPY, but pretty similar. The one thing I would like to add, which is we generally don't discuss politics on our channel, but that of course plays a role. So as the Iowa caucus, which is the first, I would say, test for the Republican nominees, that could of course play on Tuesday's market, at least if not for the long term. So that's something to watch out as well. And I
Good call.
saw I saw Cash newbie ask for SOFI, so that we are covering a little bit later in the as part of our chart analysis. So
Nice. We will get to SoFi. That's always interesting. Always making moves one way or another. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say there. All right, well, let's get into some of the tickers. I think we have Tesla up first. No, we've got Google up first. Alphabets. Take it away, Sean.
Yeah, so I went for Google just because it kind of plays in, I guess, with SPY QQQ. And we can see it's kind of breaking out a little bit. It did try it again kind of throughout December, throughout that kind of rally. But I'm keeping a close eye on this one just because it seems to have that momentum. You can see that kind of trend line moving up with all the kind of red dots on there as well. I'm not too sure why I put the yellow line there. I think that must be just, well, I don't know why that's there. I do that quite a lot. But yeah, we've got the red dots there serving as a nice support, a nice momentum, continued trend. My adding area, because I'm currently in this trade, just because I see it moving forward. Obviously, Google's doing great things, of course. And it's a big part of SPY QQQ, of course. And my ultimate target, as you can see there, is 150. And that's basically, I just want to ride this nice and slowly, nice and chilled, all the way up until kind of, I think it's around about mid-March, end of March. That's when it theoretically should end. Of course, it could get there tomorrow. It could get there 2 weeks' time after earnings. But yeah, this is the trade that I've got. Break of resistance and kind of moving to higher highs, at least not all-time highs, but just higher highs, at least in recent trading. I know, Kay, you like to cover Google, so you might have some sort of views on this stock, which I'd love to hear in just a second. But above all of the moving averages, and I'm probably going to stop talking there because I do have a habit, and I think I've talked enough.
We'd love to hear from you, Sean. I think you should keep going. But what do you got, Kay? What are your thoughts on Google?
Well, so I think Google definitely shows a lot more potential in terms of the options activity. We have the put to call ratio as 0.79, so very bullish. You have 700,000 call options as opposed to only 5,600,000 put options. So there's a lot more bullish momentum. Now, as I'm looking at chart on my side, the way at least I draw charts, 151 was your all-time high for Google, and you are at what, 142. So I mean, this is going to be a pretty interesting, see if we do get a break. Now the latest news on Google was they did announce layoffs, so that could play into the earnings as it comes, right? Because their future guidance would be, will show a decrease in the cost. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe that was the reason behind the latest layoff announcement, along with Amazon and a couple other companies following suit. I would not, if I don't have a position, I would not be getting in at these high prices at this point in time. Same with I'm not going to short Google either at this level. I'm going to wait to see if it gets rejected at 151 once it's getting closer to that, or is it going to continue making that all-time high? Because there has to be some kind of a news as well along with it. The Bard news did not really push the stock higher, but Google has been on an uptrend for a while now, so it's just not like as flashy as Nvidia or a couple other stocks. It's just gradually going on.
Yeah, I like this pattern here, bouncing nicely off the trend line, and looking forward to seeing what Google does next. If it does pull back to 140, 139 and holds, like kind of right in this area you've highlighted, Sean, I like nibbling. Wouldn't go full portfolio or anything crazy, but adding for a long term for sure, and then for a short term trade, I could see that giving a nice bounce off the trend line there if we did get that pullback, which looks like it would make some sense. Notice these bounces are tightening up though, right? Which makes a sense as well as you go up the chain, you tend to get smaller moves. So I would just keep that in mind. But really positive here. Also, if you're looking for like information on Google, shout out to the Big Tech podcast by Alex Kentrowitz. Not affiliated or anything like that, but every week there seems to be some good information on AI and some insights either from some former employees at Google or what have you. It's been good stuff. Been soaking that up lately. So Kay, you should check that out. I'm sure you'd enjoy it for sure.
Oh,
I'm sure
love
you
it.
would too, Sean. Don't get me wrong.
Make sure you drop the link to that podcast on our description so that everybody can follow through.
Good call. I will do exactly that. Link to Big Tech because that is a
good
must
idea.
listen. All right, guys. And then I also saw some requests down here for Tesla and Upstart. So we don't have Upstart this week, but maybe I'll comment on it. I'll just pull up the chart towards the end here. And after we get through our prime charts this week, because it's great to get these requests. But we have Tesla next. Should we jump to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Go for it.
So we've had a couple of news points, obviously, this week in terms of the German factory and Chinese price reductions as well. So there's always news going on with Tesla, as you know. But we can see two different charts here, and I wanted to bring this up, and it's an emphasis on one of my videos I'm releasing this week as well on the YouTube channel about kind of where to add, or thinking about where to add, should we say. So on the left, we've got the daily, and you can see that obviously it's not looking good. It's broken all three moving averages. It's looking quite aggressive to the downside. The last candle was a topping tail, so it suggests that there's more downside to come, in theory at least. But we do have a previous support of 212. So obviously we're sitting at 218 now, and previous support at 212. But if you look on the other hand, you've got the weekly chart on the right side. And then you've got the 200 moving average and the 50 moving average, which is the kind of dark blue line and the kind of lighter blue line, kind of middle blue, whatever you want to call it, acting as a bit of support. Now, this could easily retract, rebounce, and come back up to kind of 240 within a couple of weeks. It's Tesla, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this as well, Kay, because I know you follow Tesla and you kind of look at when to add for the longer term position. Because for me personally, my message here is I would probably add here from a longer term position just because of those moving averages on the weekly chart. It doesn't look great on the daily chart, but from the weekly chart point of view, that looks really good to me. Really looks really good kind of support wise. Obviously, it could drop down below to that kind of 212 level. So that would be kind of my target buy zone, I guess, at least from that point of view. But I've spoken enough. Both RSIs looking quite weak. And Tesla's earnings just around the corner, of course, so that could be an interesting catalyst to keep an eye on. But just from an investing point of view, this for me is a good time to add from a long-term point of view.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I tend to add closer to the 200 between 200 and 210, but it's definitely getting closer. I mean, if you have a cost basis which is higher than what you have today, then of course you should start to add to it position slowly, not like you would want to. I mean, you should always think on tranches. So if you have, let's say, $10,000, you want to invest in Tesla, you can decide whether you want to do it in 4 tranches. Basically, tranches specifically just means the group. So you can do it $2,000, 5 times, or 2,500 4 times. Depends on how you want to break it. That's how I think. So every year, if I allocate a certain dollar amount to this particular stock, that's how I will invest. I would actually start nibbling here and there, but I would want to see the trend reverse, because I tend to add stocks anytime it's below the 200-day moving average. But especially when it comes to nearing to the earnings season, you got to be a little careful, especially because in SaaS stocks in particular, not relatively to Tesla, but in SaaS stocks, you have seen instances where stocks can drop 20-30% post earnings. So in SaaS is a different case altogether, but in Tesla, I would start adding. 200 is a very psychological level for this stock as well. So generally, you tend to see a lot more buyers coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been definitely watching Tesla here. I was bummed to see the selling off, but I actually wrote about it for Wolf's newsletter. So if you guys haven't subscribed to the Wolf Financial newsletter, quick plug there. I'm the featured writer for the Sunday Post, and use Tesla to kind of write about taking profits when you get them, and then also cutting your losses. And this last move recently was kind of an ideal example. You can see where on the daily chart here on the left, it consolidated for a period, and then it bounced really cleanly off of the 50-day moving average, which if you took an entry on that, you see the breakout of that, range, so to speak. That's where, you want to take some profits initially to lock those in. And sure enough, we got this reversal. So I am watching for it to hold up. If it gets back down to 200, I'd definitely be jumping in here for both a trade and some long-term shares. But right now, it's like you mentioned with the topping wick there, a bit precarious. But I had not looked at that weekly, so I like the support that we might get here because of what we're seeing on that weekly chart. So
I'll just make another point here.
yeah,
So, for folks that are looking to get into Tesla, this is a very good opportunity to actually use cash secured puts, because right now, with volatility being in the 50s, especially you're looking at 30 days or 40 days out on the trading, with volatility being high, one of the best things that happens with Tesla is you get very, very good premium. So if you get like a 200, you want to get a 200 for February 16th, your premium could be anywhere between five. So let's say $530 you will make on this particular cash secured put trade. And with that, that lowers your cost basis to 195. So something to think about as an opportunity if you are
I love
looking
it.
to add.
I love it. Thanks for that, Kay. Let's see. What else was I going to add to Tesla? I think that was it. That's my only other thoughts there. Anything else there, Sean, for Tesla?
No, thank you for your insights. It's an interesting stock to look at, especially on different time frames. But yeah, that's it for Tesla.
Nice. All of your good
Yes.
stuff.
So you can find me obviously on Twitter /X, the handle you can see there. On YouTube as well, I did a video on SOFI, which I'm interested to see what Kay's thoughts are when it comes around to the chart. But yeah, I've got a video of that on SOFI there, but I've got another video coming up in terms of when to kind of add. I did mention that a second ago. For long-term positions or long-term swing trades. And obviously I do have a newsletter currently in the works. So yeah, that's it for me.
Good stuff, Sean. And if you haven't checked out Sean's YouTube channel, I highly recommend you do. The video on SoFi earlier that I haven't checked out yet, but I'm definitely be looking at later on today. And just great stuff all the way around. So appreciate it, Sean. Great to be back at it with you this week. Get to some of my charts here. And first up is Shopify. But I will tell you, before we get into Shopify, we've got a couple of semiconductor names to look at. AMD is on the list, so I see that request out there, Eddie and Sushil. So great to have the requests. And we'll look at AMD, we'll look at MRVL, and we'll definitely talk about some NVIDIA. But first up, Shopify has been absolutely ripping, and like to see it. There's two things you guys have added to my charts this week. I don't know if you guys noticed the differences. But for the levels that I draw out, they were just really cluttering up my charts. So I made them dotted lines. I know this is such a small thing, but oh my God, it's made my just going through charts so much nicer and cleaner. So instead of using the hard lines, I really like this. Stole that from somebody else I saw marking up charts for the Market Rebels. So shout out to them. All right. So then I'm also using the second thing, by the way, is the 3-point fib. So, Kay, do you use the 3-point Fibonacci?
No,
You
I
usually
don't.
just draw a straight Fibonacci
Yeah,
line, right?
exactly. But I think I'll try to see if I can draw this as well on my side.
Yeah. So the idea here is when you have a stock that's breaking out, that's had a little bit of a pullback and is continuing higher, you can use this 3-point where you go from the bottom of the range to the top, then to the bottom of the pullback, and then it gives you the kind of the level at that bottom of the pullback, and then the levels above the Fibonacci levels above.
I see. Okay.
And that's what I'm using here for Shopify, and to give me some price targets, because Shopify is broken out. Wrote about it in the newsletter. To retest 70.50 for a second time would have been ideal. We got it. And if you took entry there, that was, a great trade, powered higher all of last week and really the end of the week prior. And now we're above this next Fibonacci level, which is at 78.85, kind of rejected at the 83.89 level. Didn't even quite get there, but that's the price target. Basically trying to get above 83.90 next for Shopify. If it pulls back, looking for 78.85, to hold up as support. But it's been really nice to see this bounce and breakout. I expect it to continue higher. The 50 days curled up nicely, and RSI is nice and strong, but not overbought yet. So all things kind of positive for Shopify. What do you think about this, Sean? It's kind of a simple chart, but anything you would add?
Yeah, I really like it. I like the simplicity of it. Shopify is not really one of those stocks that I ever look at. I know it's always there, but it's never on my radar. It's never on my watch list. I guess maybe I'm just not interested in it at all. I'm not too sure.
Fair enough.
But I like the chart. I like the Fibonacci that you've drawn. It's something new to me, so I've noted that down. Did a little bit of digging on that one, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, you said everything there. You got a nice couple of bits of support there, and obviously really nice price action coming off the last move off the $70 level. And like you say, breaking previous resistance and looking to make higher highs. So if we can make those kind of higher lows, higher highs, I don't see any reason why this isn't a good kind of swing trade, I guess, is the way I look at it. But yeah, no, I like it.
Nice. How about you, Kay?
I actually did just draw the Fibonacci, the 3-point on my side, and it looks pretty interesting. I actually do see couple how about the volume? Do you have the volume profile here? See, the volume is drawing out at this point in time.
It is, right. You're
Right.
at high levels here. So that is something that I haven't really, you can't really, at least from what I'm seeing, there's no recent volume to go off of, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we actually have a pretty good volatility as well on this one. It's in the 38, and then it on the 19th, which is generally the hedging going on, there's still 0.77 as put to call ratio. So it's very positive, very bullish heading into the earnings for Shopify, which I don't think is going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I think it's probably end of February or something like that. They always
that's
report
right.
after tech earnings, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I like this stock. I am actually in a trade. I mean, I have couple calls, covered calls open on this one. And what I tend to do is whenever it hits my price point, I tend to just roll those calls to collect extra premium. So yeah.
I had a feeling you were going there with the volatility. So I love it. Love to hear that. And yeah, so again, looking for it to get above 83.90 next. I'd be taking profits if it did, push up to 84. And then there's a nice big run to 92 for the next level. So yeah, continue to take profits in Shopify if you're in it, and look for this level here at 78.85 to hold up as support. All right, so next up on the list, mentioned semiconductors, we got MRVL. MRVL is a favorite for me to trade, and I'll tell you why. Look at the size of these candles. I mean, they can burn you for sure. You got to be careful, but if you get the right spot, it really can pay off nicely. So what we have here is a similar thing. I've got the 3-point fib, but you don't see the bottom of it. It's kind of right off the screen there. But that's what set up these trading levels, and you can see it's respecting it pretty cleanly, pretty well here. The 50-day moving average also curling up, and we've got a nice move up here in relative strength, actually kind of peaking out. So it might be a little bit overbought. And you see the rejection off of the call it 67.17 levels, what the Fibonacci says. So looking for it to hold up at 65.40, and that is roughly in line with the prior highs where we had a hard time getting above. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw MRVL pull back. Kay, to your point, great spot to sell covered calls here, I think.
Exactly. Because your RSI is hitting at the top. The
Right.
volume has picked up actually over here.
It has picked up. Yeah.
Right? Your average volume has gone up to 1395, where it used to be like around the 4-5 million, 6 million on a daily basis. So
it has ticked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is that, it could continue higher. And if it does break higher, I mean, I think we could see it run all the way to 70, no doubt. But that being said, if the volatility is where it's at, you can collect some nice premiums selling basically at the money or just out of the money covered calls. So I do like that, but this continues to give us higher lows and higher highs. So MRVL's trying to get above those recent highs, right here in the 65.50 range, and we'll see what happens. But I like the overall setup. One last comment: this is volume weighted average price is anchored from that prior high, and that's what this gray line is. And you can see the nice bounce, quick recovery after it got below, and then powered higher. So another kind of positive setup. We could see that act as a magnet, but for right now, I like the setup. What do you think, Sean? Any other comments here on MRVL?
was going to ask what those lines were because I knew it wasn't moving averages because the blue line is kind of a bit rigid at certain points. So I'm glad you cleared that up with the average volume weighted price. Yeah, I mean, this is not one I cover again. I mean, I've seen you cover it on this channel, and it is on the semiconductor watch list. But I do like the kind of breakout potential here. It's not quite as refined as I would like it, because obviously you can see on the very far left of the chart, the high around about 67, it's probably 68 more like. So it's not quite a refined kind of level that I'd be looking for. So perhaps that 70 level will be a bit more prominent basically for a breakout. So if we can get above 70, come back down, retest it, and then move higher, that really shows strength behind the stock. But generally, the trend for this stock is really nice. So the end of October, really, it's set higher highs, higher lows, which is what you want to see in a stock, isn't it? Of course. So yeah, carrying on that and getting up to 70 is probably where I'd be looking for this for any sort of trade. To be honest with you, in terms of like a buying shares, etc. That's how I kind of do things. But yeah, no, it's a positive stock. Another good chart that you brought up here, Nate.
Nice, appreciate that, Sean. All right, guys. Well, that is my look at semiconductors, but that is my favorite space. So just wanted to mention a name in addition to NVIDIA, which has been just absolutely on fire. Funny quick story. I had a friend who sells covered calls in NVIDIA every now and again, and he sends me and he hates it because he's like, every time I've done this over the past years, it rips higher. And I'm not kidding. He sent me, I sold 550 NVIDIA calls. It's going to rip. And like, that was days before, and it just took off. Like, I just couldn't believe it. So it's funny how that works. So I'll let you guys know next time I hear from him for sure. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, definitely check me out on X at Trader Nate here. Also, these other handsome gentlemen you see here, that is, we just saw SHAUN Trades also on X. Be sure to give him a follow, and download Invest K. Give him a follow as well. And then we are live streaming on at Wolf Financial. Wolf's not live streaming with us, but I did see some questions around that, so I want to address that real quick. But he's not with us on the actual live stream, but a great supporter of what we're doing. And I am a writer for Wolf Financial, so I always want to give a lot of credit for everything that Wolf's doing. Big things. Be sure you're following Wolf and subscribe to his newsletter as well. And then I've got my newsletter at Traders Education, doing a lot of great things there. Just got over 700 subscribers. So if you're a trader looking for great trade ideas and just kind of education in the space, be sure to check that out. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Kay, because I know we've got some great tickers here, starting with AMD. What do you got?
Awesome. So yeah, so we have the first ticker is AMD, and it's a very interesting take that's going on with AMD. So we had our 151.05 as our last high, and we actually hit that level, and then we got rejected at that level. So it's still on an uptrend. Another data point is that the RSI is very close to the 1762 at this point in time, and then interestingly, the buying volume has started to tick down.
Yeah,
I don't know why that's the case. It's a pretty sharp dip, at least on the chart that I see. It's not visible here, but it was 63 million and it dropped to 48 million. So that was a pretty massive drop in the volume. Now, generally, for options traders, AMD is one of the very very liquid stocks where a lot of options trading happens with AMD. Like Tesla, AMD is one of the favorite stocks. Bank of America, another couple tickers. So interestingly, I think I'm not going to be buying to my long-term investment position at these levels. If you already have, good point to sell covered calls. If you don't, then I would look at the $137. That would be the buying level. And the reason is because there's a lot more buying happening at that. There's a lot more buying volume comes in at that level. And if that level is breached, because that level stayed as a support level for actually throughout mid-December, and then we did hit that level back in early January, and then we had a big bounce up, again hitting this. So seems like, I don't know if you're doing this as a double top at this point in time, or is it actually in play of a double top. So we'll see how that pans out in the next couple days or so. So I would definitely not be buying stocks at this level. I would be looking at trading opportunities. So since most of my trades are into the options, where I tend to trade selling options, I would look at about 135, 137, maybe a month and a half out to see premiums, because we do have a decent amount of volatility in the 30s range. So let's say if I'm looking at 16th February, you are looking at a volatility of 56, 48, 56%. So at 135, you'll get about $310 as premium on the lower side. So that's a pretty decent rate of return for about a month out. So that's
not
how
bad
I'm
at
doing.
all. That is
Right.
not bad at all. Yeah. You seeing a lot of these kind of opportunities these days, recently in the start of the year, I should say these days. It sounds
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny.
no, exactly. And what I've noticed that when we were in the middle, maybe the end of second quarter, third quarter last year, the weekly options premium were giving you much bang for the buck. But now, at least noticing from the December onwards, that now if you actually go out a month, maybe between 3 to 6 weeks, the premiums are much higher because there's a lot more volatility involved in that. So just like I said, for Tesla, I gave you a point of $200, right? For this one, I would target 135. I actually currently are in a trade at 132, which I sold cash secured put back in December. That's a complete profit. I had like a $500 on premium on that one. So it's pretty much, it's gonna expire worthless on 19th. Hopefully, if it doesn't fall that low.
Just keep stacking cash. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean? Anything to add to AMD here?
No, just it's a trend as your friend again. I've got to beat it, but yeah, it's obviously going in the right direction. It's moving up higher. One thing I would say is obviously if you're holding shares, if you're holding swing trades related to AMD or any stock that's kind of gone up and kind of now leveling out a little bit, and you're a little bit scared of where to go, just do your due diligence and where those levels are. Use the indicators that you're most comfortable with, or even just trade off of price volume, price action that's happened recently. Just be extra due diligent in where your process is, because it's very easy for a stock to come back and then you think, oh, actually, I'm just going to sell the whole position. When really, if it's above a key moving average or above a trend line, then what you should really be doing is analyzing that level and then setting your stop loss below that and just riding the trend rather than panic selling. So just a little bit of a message there, really. Just don't panic sell, just stick to your guns, stick with the trade, stick with the trend, etc., etc. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of went off a tangent there, but there you go.
Oh, it's good though. That's really solid message. I think it's good to get that out there. And no, this is a great chart too. I feel like we're starting off the year with some interesting stuff, and that's what we said basically all of last year, right? Is like week in and week out, endless opportunities, a lot of interesting charts. So
Always.
yeah, this is another good one, Kay. Hey, really quick comment, by the way, you guys. I dropped because we're getting some questions like, hey, who are these speakers? It's great to see it. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware. I did reply to the live stream that we've got on Wolf Financial on X, but this is at Sean Clark _, and this is at Invest KAYE, and also at Trader Nate here. So if you guys are looking to give a follow, I did drop that. I replied, and so go ahead and click those links. And also, if you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and give a like to the Trading Triangle. We're doing this every week. Sorry to interrupt, Kay. Let's get to your next
This is great. This is good to. I mean, I'm glad that we are getting so many questions. So
I love
it's
it.
good to have audience. It's good to get questions, whether it's positive, negative, doesn't matter.
That's right.
Your questions.
I'm with you. So what do you got next, though? We got SOFI. That's right.
Yes. So interestingly, we actually had two demands from the audience today, both for AMD and SOFI. So we just talked about. Yeah, I guess I right. You have to start the year with the stocks that you like the most, right? So
there you go.
I think with SOFI, it's at a very interesting point, right? Of course, it's trading below its 20-day moving average. We recently have a little down, we had a downturn with SOFI. It's around the 50-day moving average. It's 817 it closed before it broke down all the way to 789, and then we had some buying in coming in. So it's right hovering on the 50-day moving average, closing very close to the 200-day moving average. So very critical key levels for the stock, especially heading into earnings. Sean, you covered it on your channel today on the video that one of the keys this time is that there's a lot of talks about getting into profitability. So that's, I guess, the eyes will be on that. Now, I think from the fib level that we actually have, over here is the 797 is a very key level for the stock, and that's exactly where the most of the buying volume comes in. So I currently actually have a trade. If you follow me on X, I did post like a couple days ago that I opened a couple of contracts at $8 level, couple months, I think it was a month out or so. Very handsome premiums on that, because every time you're getting into the earnings, the volatility is crazy. Actually, for the 19th next week, can you guys guess what the volatility would be on SoFi? Just take a wild guess.
Oh man. Like, is it double what it normally is? Something
Yeah,
ridiculous?
I mean, you're looking at anywhere between 40% to 60%.
Yikes.
Yeah. So what it tells you, when you have this much volatility and if you are doing options, you get very, very good premiums. Now, if you're doing, of course, cash secure ports or selling covered calls is not the right point. This is not the right time to be selling covered calls, uh,
Nice.
right? This is a time when you should be actually opening a position for future and take advantage of these if you want to hold the stock for the long term. Um, I will be posting a much more detailed video of SoFi on my channel. I think it will come out tomorrow or so. But I think for now, I would be tracking the 797. The 8 level is a very crucial level for the stock. And heading into earnings, I believe that there will be a lot more buying heading into earnings. And if they are able to prove profitability, then you might be seeing the highs of 1049. It might even break those. But if doesn't happen, then I don't see it falling, crashing all the way to oblivion. I think there are a lot of support levels between here and to 641 that we may see buyers stepping in. So that's what I see.
What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I think with the profitability, they've been saying it for at least the last 3 quarters. I'm pretty sure 4 quarters that they're aiming for profitability in the fourth quarter of 2023. And lots of people have been playing throughout last year, thinking, "Oh, it's going to come early. It's going to come early." A bit like Palantir had it early, of course, towards the end of 2022 for them. But Antinoto has really kind of hunkered down on this profitability on Q4 specifically. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's life changing, but the way that the company's grown, it's done very consistently. They've met their goals, targets. They've spoke very well about the company as well. So I would like to think that they would hit profitability just because it kind of makes sense from their kind of philosophy. That makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm wording it right. From the kind of philosophical side of the company. But yeah, from a technical point of view, being above the 200 moving averages is the only positive. Obviously, we've got some moving averages kind of that needs to get through. But the risk reward, I think, is there, even at a lower price stock. The risk reward is definitely there for me personally. I've got quite a high risk level, so obviously take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I'm adding at this point personally. Again, it's not financial advice, just a bit of fun. But yeah, I like SoFi, and I think we might see some good news on the earnings report.
Yeah, I don't think SoFi trades with like other banks' news reports very like consistently, and I know that's not what you were saying. So that's one thing that I'm kind of curious about. Like, we getting all the banks reporting. Does SoFi actually start reacting to that at all, or does it still kind of do its own thing before it gets to its own earnings? But yeah, I like it here around 8, and really that 845 fib level you got there, Kay. If it breaks above that meaningfully, gets above 850, you can see just by looking left on the chart that it just runs, right? Well, as soon as it gets out above that level, there's just nothing really stopping it. So whether it's moving up or down, it's just big movements between 850 and call it 950, really. And so yeah, that would be kind of interesting to see if it starts creeping up towards that level, taking a position for another big move. It's a nice swing trade stock here because of the price. I think you can just use shares really without having to use options. So yeah, I like SoFi here as well. It's an interesting spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with your comment that it doesn't really move along with the other banks, because it's always a disruptor. That's how it has
Mhm.
been, positioned as a stock, and it doesn't really necessarily aligns with it. But there are definitely levels that I think getting into the earnings, there will be a lot more positive momentum. Remember, this is a retail stock as opposed to bank stocks, which are more institutional, investors. So we'll see how that plays out. it's going to be pretty interesting getting into the earnings.
Agreed. Where can we find you, Kay?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter, now X actually, and you should definitely follow me because I do post trade ideas and the trades that I take, on Twitter. And there are some interesting other non finance related stuff that you might enjoy. I don't know, we'll see. But definitely follow me on YouTube. That's where I generally will be posting a lot more content related to not just the investing stock analysis of specific stocks, industries, but also trading ideas on a weekly basis. So follow me there as well. And I do write for Substack, so you can catch up some writing on that side as well.
Lots of good stuff. I'd love to see you guys. It's been good getting back and doing this, getting after the charts, looking at trade ideas. I've got one more to add in because we did get the request on Upstart. So real quickly, because we have run long, I feel like it's just been exciting getting back, right? And we just had a lot to talk about. But Upstart, it's definitely one to trade because of the volatility. You can get some big moves. And right now it's sitting right just below its 50-day moving average, which is also at a volume shelf at about 32.50. So it actually closed at 31.50, $1 below that. If it continues to drop to start the week, so I guess that would be Tuesday, it could just drop all the way down to 27 before it finds support. That's where the next volume shelf is. But if it recovers back above 33 here, above the 50-day moving average, look for a nice bounce and really a clean run to 43.50, call it. So just a quick analysis, in between volume shelves, kind of what I'd be looking at Upstart. Love the questions, though. Hopefully that helps you out there. So with that said, guys, great week ahead of us. Short week, but hopefully a great week. I'm excited about it. And I'm just going to be traveling and trading lightly. So, I'll be posting what have you and writing some trade ideas. I do have Mara posting tomorrow, so MARA, so stay tuned for that. But Kay, what do you got going this week? And what are your parting words for our lovely audience that's tuned in, I'm sure, from around the world?
Well, I think, as we always say in trading standpoint, right, this is Sean's words and probably trend is your friend. But I always say this, if you are into options trading, just keep an eye on your trades that you are into, especially when you see major breakouts or breakdowns on prices, because that could lead to early assignments, which you may or may not be prepared if you are on margin accounts. So be very, very careful on those. As the earning season kicks in, I always, say earning season is a gamble. It's a binary event. Nobody can predict it. So if you are getting into a trade, think of it as a gamble. And that's what I'll leave the audience with.
How about you? What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, subscribe to the channel. We haven't said it enough.
Yes.
We're the worst at this. But yeah, we're going to make a real push this year, and obviously we really enjoy doing this, and we love sharing our trading perspectives, trading ideas, etc. At the expense of a little bit of fun. But yeah, no, it's good. I don't really have much of a message. Maybe just stay calm, stay stable with your emotions. Really concentrate on each trade as it comes, and don't get too excited with the earnings seasons, because I've done it before, and obviously it's very easy to be done to get excited around earnings. But yeah, that's it for me. And subscribe again.
Subscribe. You can follow these guys again at InvestK. That's KAYE. At Shaun Clark. And by the way, Sean, I know you can spell your name a million ways, but SHAUN Clark
That's the
with
one.
an E on the end underscore.
Yeah.
And then you can find me at Trader Nate here. We're gonna actually add a little bit of info. I think I have some ideas, you guys, so that people know where they can find us, because we're getting some nice traction on the live stream. I want to make sure everybody knows where we'll be posting all week. But yeah, great news again as far as getting us updated on what you guys' trade ideas are and what's going on with markets. I'd love to see the positive movements. We'll be back next week for sure. So thanks again for tuning in to the Trading Triangle and on the Wolf Financial live stream and mine as well. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week of trading.
Take care, everybody. Happy New Year to all of you.
Happy New Year.